Centuries ago, West Africa thrived with rich trade networks. Powerful kingdoms like Mali and Songhai exchanged gold, ivory, and textiles with Arabs and other African nations. Then, Europeans arrived, initially seeking gold. They traded mirrors, beads, and guns for African resources, establishing coastal trading posts like Elmina Castle. However, Europe soon faced a new hunger: labor for their American colonies. Native Americans and European debtors proved insufficient for the vast plantations. A dark decision was made: Africans would become this labor. What began as trade between equals slowly transformed into exploitation and dominance. European powers began influencing local wars, supplying guns to fuel conflicts and generate more captives. Human lives were bought for cheap goods like rum and cloth. The Middle Passage, the journey across the Atlantic, became a place of unimaginable agony. Families were broken, villages emptied, and kingdoms fell apart. Europe grew rich from this suffering, building cities and industries on African labor and blood. Africa was never the same again. Long after Europeans began asking for captives, the trade in human beings grew into a system that involved not only foreign buyers, but also certain African leaders and warriors who became suppliers. This part of history is sensitive, but it must be told honestly. In those days, Africa was not one united nation. It was a land of many kingdoms, languages, and rivalries. Kingdoms competed for land, power, and influence. Some had been enemies for generations. War was not new, but before Europeans came, captives were usually used as workers locally or absorbed into the victor's community or ransomed back. But when Europeans began paying gunpowder, muskets, metal weapons, and foreign goods in exchange for prisoners, war took on a new character. Now, war produced wealth. A captured enemy was no longer a person, they became a commodity. Some rulers, like those of Dahomey and Asante, built armies specialized in capturing people. Raids became common. A village could go to sleep safely and wake up in terror. Warriors would rush in at dawn, shouting, firing guns provided by Europeans, burning homes, and seizing the able-bodied. These people, men, women, even children, were marched in chains to the coast. Along the way, many died. Those who survived reached the slave forts, stone dungeons built and run by Europeans, but often supplied by Africans acting as intermediaries.
This created a terrible cycle. Europeans supplied guns. Guns made armies stronger. Stronger armies captured more people. More people were sold to get more guns. In this cycle, some Africans gained short-term power, but the entire continent paid a long-term price.
Villages lived in fear. Farmers abandoned their fields. Trade between African nations collapsed because people were afraid to travel. Populations declined, skills disappeared, and trust between neighboring tribes was shattered. While some leaders resisted, like King Afonso of Congo, who wrote letters to Portugal begging them to stop the trade, others embraced it. And once the supply had begun, it was almost impossible to stop. A kingdom that refused to sell captives risked being attacked by a rival that did. Meanwhile, Europeans stayed mostly on the coast, avoiding malaria inland. They let Africans do the capturing while they waited behind their fort walls. The Europeans appeared distant, almost uninvolved, yet they were the ones creating demand and rewarding violence. So the tragedy deepened. Africans were selling other Africans, but under European influence, European demand, and European market pressure. Some Africans thought they were selling outsiders, people from rival tribes, thinking the damage would not reach them. But eventually, every group became vulnerable. The trade consumed all. By the time many realized the horror of what was happening, the system had grown too large, too profitable, and too defended by European firepower. In the end, Africa lost millions of its strongest people. The continent weakened itself from within, while Europe grew stronger from without. And this shows a painful truth of history. Europe used African divisions and rivalries as weapons, and those divisions helped turn Africa's own children into exports.